the past week, one of the biggest stories has to be the ban of Okada, that's the commercial motorcycles, and keke, the commercial tricycles, in certain parts of Lagos State. It's got a lot of people talking, and if you've moved around yesterday and today, when the ban took effect on the 1st of February yesterday, you will have noticed that the roads in Lagos are looking different. Now, to discuss this issue, I have with me a social commentator, Okpeyemi Oke. Okpeyemi, welcome to Rubbing Minds.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
Now, you're familiar with the ban of keke and Okada here in Lagos State. Did you ever see this coming?
I knew someday it's going to come, but I never knew that it was going to come this early. And of course, I think there is a communication gap between the government and the operators of keke and Marwa. I see it coming. I've seen it coming rather, and I knew that it was going to happen someday.
So you've seen this coming, but someone would argue that there's been an influx of bike-hailing apps. So you've seen different kind of Okadas on the road. You've even seen the commercial keke on the road, right. And you still feel that based on all of this investment coming in, there was still going to be a ban.
Definitely. You know, change is one constant thing that we must know. And of course, looking at, I mean, if you read Governor Sanwo-Olu's declaration and standpoint on this, you discover that I think since 2012, there has been, you know, this Lagos traffic law that puts restriction on bikes and, of course, talks about the the horsepower rather of the bikes. And I think that's why the bike hailing companies actually had to get bikes with higher horsepowers, and I think they partnered with the government, they had conversation with the government, but I knew someday it was going to happen because I think it was being abused at a point. You see, the government is saying that we're losing lives, and of course it's obvious. I've seen by myself of some of this recklessness of these bike men. So I saw it coming, and I knew that it was going to come someday.
So safety, if lives are being lost, properties are being damaged, and there's a lot of issues on the roads, they're saying that the Lagos master plan, it's always been there. But you mentioned the communication gap. How long do you think the government should have communicated with the public about this decision?
You know, I think this dialogue should have taken not less than 6 months. You know, I personally feel that there should have been a time, the government just came and decided. Now, it should have been a transitioning. We should have transitioned into it, you know, because I personally feel, reading the declaration of the Commissioner for Transportation and the interpretation that we have, you know, as a people, or the Okada riders actually have, I think that there is a bit of communication gap. Now, everybody's talking about ban, but the guy is talking about the restrictions, you know. And I think if there had been, you know, dialogue, if there had been more, like a multi-stakeholder approach to discussing this and seeing, it gives the bike-hailing companies and service providers to, you know, transition and to prepare themselves. Of course, if you look at, the Okada and Keke was banned from, I think, 15 LCDAs, of 57 LCDAs. That's about 24% of the market. So I think 6 months would have been enough for the bike-hailing services to re-strategize on how they can actually maximize the remaining 74% of the market and see how they can actually do it. I think so. The dialogue should have taken more time, and they should have consulted across board before, you know, making that decision. 2 weeks was too short. If it was up to 2 weeks, it was too short for that decision.
So I mentioned that yesterday it took effect, and if you were on the roads, you'd have noticed that there weren't that many Okadas, there weren't that many tricycles to get you from place to place. Like, have you really seen any of the palliative measures, any of the alternative transport provision that the government said they've put in place?
No, absolutely. That's where I think the problem is. You know, you don't scrap a system when you don't have an alternative. So you're talking about smaller cars that will be available to do shuttle within these communities or these local government, local council development areas, but we have not seen any. You're talking about the train system. We've not seen it functional. So you don't take off what people have. Though, of course, you have to consider safety before you talk about economic stability. But you don't consider, I mean, if you have to put into consideration the stress that people will go through. Yesterday, I mean, tomorrow I'm so, I can't imagine the stress commuters are going to go through tomorrow to get to their various places of work. So if you want to give, if you want to clear these guys off the road, you should provide alternative before you can actually take them out of the road. That's what I think. I think the government didn't do well at that.
I think if we go back down memory lane, even to the time of Governor Fashola, during his administration, it's all about safety. And there was a time when if you were not using the helmet, you couldn't be on the road. So surely some of these Okada riders, keke napep, would have been aware of the government's, should I say, body language towards their operations. Don't you think during this period there should have been more proactiveness on the side of the keke and the Okada?
You know, if you want to delve into that, it's a bit deep. Now, the same government that says that, okay, we are regulating this and very soon we're going to phase it out. Now, if you look at most of the political, the elected officers, you know, across different constituencies and local governments, when they want to do the so-called community or empowerment projects, these same people that wants to, you know, stop these people from using this
or
restrict these guys rather, would still present Okada as a form of empowerment to them. So, you know, and we're in a country where unemployment is crazy. I was listening to one of the, what's it called, bike-hailing service providers, bike man or woman or lady yesterday, of how she had to actually resort to that because she was a graduate and she needed a job. Now, so if we knew that we're going to take this out and we shouldn't have encouraged it, as a country, we should start, you know, I mean, developed countries look into the skills that will be relevant in the future, and they gradually start to train and prepare the people for it, train people in data science, train people in artificial intelligence, give them in-demand and sellable skills as an alternative to riding Okada before you can phase it out. So, of course, I knew that they should have been proactive, but of course, but if you look at the realities of the country, it's not as easy. You know, and
so you've delved on two things, the political implications and the economic implications. Now let's look at the Naira and the Kobo. For a lot of the keke riders as well as the Okada riders, this is a source of employment. Some people take loans to even provide this keke and these Okada bikes to people. So there's a lot of money that is being made. And like you mentioned, bike-hailing apps are paying taxes to the government to operate here in Lagos State. What do you think are the far-reaching implications economically for this restriction by Lagos State government?
Of course, it's going to have serious, some devastating effect on some of these people because a lot of them don't have alternative source of income. But what we can look at is, since the government is saying that there is no going back, there is no going back on this, so what do we do? What I think they can do is, Lagos State says that we've provided LSETF, that's Lagos State Employment Trust Fund. You know, the question is now how accessible is this fund? So people can start looking at alternative source of income, start getting, building skills, relevant skills and in-demand skills. They may struggle for a while, but of course, for those that are resilient, I'm sure that they'll be able to actually pick themselves up and get something they can do, then access these funds to actually start something and do something for themselves. That's what I feel that they can do on the immediate. And of course, like I said, just 24% of the market is taken over from them. So some of them can strategically position themselves to see how, just that the competition becomes high, they say have 74% of the market, that's about 42 LCDAs where the Okadas are not banned. You know, I think some of them can still, especially the, bike-hailing services that have built apps and, of course, developed some innovation into making bike transportation safer and easier. They can actually re-strategize their market to see how they can leverage and maximize the 74% that is remaining of the market, whilst others start looking for sustainable source of income, you know, by leveraging on the available funds, you know, the government has provided for. Yeah,
now let's talk about you and I, the average man out there on the street that relies on keke and Okada, tricycles and motorbikes as a means of transportation. Even some of the so-called big men and women of wealth and of status, sometimes you see them going on it because they have a flight to catch and they don't want to be late because the traffic situation is there. So how does it affect us? And do you see a rise in the prices of transportation because now you've effectively removed a form of transportation, so they know that if you don't come to us, you're going to have to walk?
Obviously, it's going to actually hike the price of transportation. The NURTWs and all the bus drivers are going to leverage on it. The taxi drivers are going to actually leverage on this to hike their transport fare. But what I see is that it's going to, ease out with time. It's going to get easier by the day. It's going to be tough on us at the beginning. Like I said, it is indiscretional of the government to actually put some of these things into consideration before making the proclamation. But since they've made it, we have to make do with what we have. You know, let's maximize the water transportation. Let's maximize. That's what we have right now as an alternative. We don't have the rail system working. I mean, the train system working yet. So we can maximize the water transportation. And a lot of people, we have to do a lot of adjustment, you know, understanding the fact that, okay, there is no bike anymore. I need to leave my work early because, you know, I don't think your boss is going to give you that, what's it called, pardon you for as an excuse that because there is no Okada, I can't get to work. So people may have to leave their houses early. And I think I've seen the deliberate efforts of the government to see how they can make the roads better. Some of these places, some part of Lagos where we have a lot of gridlocks, they're trying to make the roads better. And I'm sure that with time, we're going to get used to it and it's going to get better. And and I'm sure that people are going to be able to afford cars.
So,
you know?
so the government just has to do more in providing alternative
the government will
forms
have to
of
provide,
transport.
I mean, and make it as soon as possible so that, you know, people don't get to, because it's going to get to a time if they don't provide this alternative source of transportation, not the Okada riders that will go out protesting anymore. I mean, just every one of us, we actually get on the street and protest, you know, because we want ease. Lagos State, there is an influx of people every day. The population is on the rise. And of course, and I think that, you know, the government could have done a lot better at regulating these bike men at first before facing them out. You know, but of course, like I said, the government has taken its own decision. It's how we're going to manage the situation and see how we can maximize it for ease, you know,
Okay.
on all sides.
Thank you very much, Okpeyemi.
Thank you.
Okay, social commentator, for being with us on Rubbing Minds. And hopefully all the things we've discussed will get to the right people.
Don't just stand